All right. Hello, everybody. I believe we are going live. I believe we're live. Ronald, if you can check that just to make sure, but it's telling me we're live. So
It's
it,
upcoming to me.
it what?
It's upcoming, but I've just clicked that and
I just got a notification. I believe we're live.
we're
Hello,
live.
everybody. Good to see everybody listening. Those of you that are listening to Power Faith Radio tonight, we thank you so much for coming this way. Our Georgia group did text tonight. They have 49. And our coffee shop group, they said they apologize. They didn't get to come last week, but they're here tonight. And looking forward to picking back up in the book as well. And then also, we have reduced our live stream. We're no longer live streaming on the Facebook groups, but we are posting the video. So if you're in on Power Faith Radio and you'd like to come on over, you can come to YouTube and find us there at Outreach Noah. While you're there, hit that notification or hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell that you'll be notified every time a new video goes up. And you can also come in our Zoom room. The link is posted in Simple Walk Facebook group. So Terry, how you doing?
Doing
See,
good.
it's shorter anymore. I'm gonna have to find something else to talk about because it usually takes me, 5 or 6 minutes to announce everything, and it's over. I'm there. I've got it all said.
Oh, doing good.
Okay, good deal.
Last week is over, and this week has kind of calmed down a little bit.
All right.
I got a little bit of sanity left by the end of the day. Oh, moving getting that dealership up and moving, and everybody in the world wanting to come over and try out the, the new feel. Ooh, last week was fun, but we're doing good. All righty, greetings everyone. I guess Scotty's already greeted everyone there in the Power Faith Radio and YouTube, watching us live on YouTube, and right here in the Zoom room we have. Am I broke, Scotty? Oh, there we go. That's better.
There you
go. Of course, Scotty down the engine room, as long as you don't hit any wrong buttons and everything goes black.
I just try not to move.
He'll close the door in the closet, and we'll all be trying, Oh, then Ronald and Thomas, glad to see you again. When you moving, Thomas?
Hopefully soon. I got another meeting tomorrow, so
hey, hopefully go good. Well, go good for you. And Bob and Veronica still in Texas, the great nation of Texas. And then Chrissy and Will, Wendell, then Fred, all the way up there in Paducah, Kentucky, and then Annie, Scotty's better half.
She's in the living room.
And she's in the living room.
Yeah.
All righty. Tonight I also wanted to greet, actually, I'll be honest with you, I don't know why we hadn't thought about this before. It's just, how it is. You just don't think of some things until something is said. And then I'm like, why haven't I been doing that? And that is, some don't know that on our Power Faith Radio that we stream on, it's like the internet. It goes worldwide too. And Scotty's got a little world there that spins on his computer as it's running, and it shows on there, different countries that are logged on to the class. And here's just a sample. Of course, we know Australia's on there because we've got some of Australia's best in our class every week.
Yeah.
And then Mexico, Brazil, Philippines, Costa Rica, Jamaica, and I think we've had a few times China's popped up there a few times, and stuff. So we just want to say a greetings to all of those in the other nations that have logged on to the class, and thank you for logging on. Scotty said that, of course, like Mexico, Brazil, the Philippines, Costa Rica, and Jamaica are fairly. They always, fairly log on every week, most of the time. And so I just want to say greetings to them as well. And Scotty, are you about ready?
I am. Talking about the Costa Rica, there are people there that almost listen to the radio about 9 hours a day.
Oh,
So
okay.
we've got some great teachers on there. So anyway, they listen about 9 hours a day. That's an average. Those I sent you, I just plucked them out. Of course, right now all those are listening, and there is you mentioned China. There's some folks in China listening right now. So it's good to have them. Good to have
Yes.
them.
Welcome to Outreach Noah.
Okay, so we're going to get right into our Sadaka time tonight. We appreciate everybody who has sent us Sadaka. And Terry, I did make you co-host it. Christopher's coming in, and or sending us names as well. You don't have to send funds in. You can just send us the names. We've got some funds here ready to give for your need. So we're starting off. Always, Terry and I give Sadaka for our main teacher, Pesach and Shira Sherbo. And then we've got Clifford Hool on the Sadaka list tonight. Clifford Hool, I talked to him today, and we're just he's got good spirits, and he will soon be traveling to the next part of his life. So, but we got Clifford Hool on our Sadaka list tonight. Also, we continue to have Wendy Shepard on our Sadaka list tonight. And Amuela, I don't see Amuela. She must be wore out again, but we got Amuela. Somebody sends in $1. So this is Amuela's Sadaka going into the Sadaka box. And they also include Veronica Port on this Sadaka list. And then they also include Thomas Schaus. It's good to see Thomas again coming into the meeting. And then let's see where I'm at. Okay, also we have Nadine Akins. Well, I'm having a little trouble. I'm going to have to empty this out and count it and put it in the box. Nadine Akins. Now, some of you remember we kindly requested funds to help Nadine. We call her Danielle. I'm going to tell this. I feel like telling us. I'm going to tell it. So we, through no fault of her own, her dentures were destroyed. Now she's 37 years old, and she's had kind of a rough life. She straightened her life out, and so we just put a call out, to see if anybody would want to help us raise the funds to help her get her some new dentures. And the funds came in within a half a day. All the funds we needed to do this. Well, this coming Monday, it is the day we finally got the date for the dentist, and that's the day she's going to get her new teeth. So I'm gonna share a picture of her smiling as soon as we get those. So we appreciate everybody who did that. So this Monday that will be fulfilled. So we thank everybody for giving in that. Let's see if I can get that in there. Okay, and that was Nadine Akins. Also, William and Tina Lyons. We have them on our Sadaka list tonight. Also, Ronald Dickman. Ronald had his surgery, and then he had a little bout with his friends he keeps at home. Ronald, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better today. Still a bit sore, but everything's awkward because washing yourself, dressing yourself one-handed. It's quite a challenge doing everything at the moment. But we're working through it slowly.
So now, what was the surgery they did on you?
The first surgery was they finally did the hernia operation, and
okay,
it's looking like the severe pain issues were associated with it at the moment. We're still not sure. And then the second thing was a mass of stitches all over my legs and hands from two fanged up large dogs.
Yeah. So not that they attacked you, but you just got in the middle of their argument.
Yeah, they thought they were getting each other, but they got me.
Yeah. So they didn't mean it. They were just, that's how they
being dogs.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. So, okay. But you're stitched up, recovering up, and washed up. Is that what you just said to me? You're stitched up or covered up and washed up. So we're glad to see you, Ronald. Okay, and then also Warwick Marshall sent a message. He's not going to be able to be here tonight, but we have him on our Sadaka list, and Andrea Chester and her family. We still have them on our Sadaka list tonight. Boy, I'm going to try to pronounce this name. Verda Myers Epstein. I think I done that pretty good. Is on our Sadaka list tonight. And then also Rabbi Moshe Shulman is on our Sadaka list tonight. So we're going to keep him on there for a couple of weeks or maybe longer. We'll see. And then also in our blessed memory tonight, we have my wife's parents on our blessed memory tonight, Ray and Nellie Garland. We're giving for their merit. Let's just take a minute. Would you help us pray tonight? Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayers with compassion and favor. For you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You're our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, this week we are going back to the book study, but I do want to tell you that we've got quite a few text and emails and just messages that they really enjoyed the Q&A time that we did. And I've sent out and said maybe in a month when we get on through the book, maybe a little longer, we'll go back to the Q&A, keep sending some questions. And I do have a couple. I'm just gonna store them back, and we'll jump in that again when you're ready. What chapter of the book are we on right now, Terry?
We are going to be
and let's tell the book again.
Okay, we have been going through the 7 gates of righteous knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and faith for righteous Gentiles by Rabbi Moshe Weiner and Dr. Shulman. And here, I'll throw it up here.
Let me put you on speaker view, Terry,
right,
so that'll come out.
You're muted. There you go. The 7 gates of righteous knowledge and spiritual knowledge and faith for all righteous Gentiles. Kind of a companion book to the Divine Code, the way I look at it. And tonight we're going to begin the 3rd gate, the gate of serving God, chapter 1, the essence of the service of God. But before I get into that tonight, we're just going to be just reading and discussing. So, Scotty, if you got something that pops up or whatever you want to interject, just go right ahead as we go in, get this new chapter started. But tonight, before we get started, it's not completely off topic, but I was reading something this week. I have this 2-volume set called Duties of the Heart, and it's one of Israel's great I don't know if you want to call sacred writings, but very, very, some of the ancient writings that was written by Rabbi Bakia ibn Pakuda. And it's really good. I'm actually picked it up because I'm in one of the gates, the gate of honesty that Dr. Shulman has posted this week about it. And I think a couple other rabbis have talked a little bit about it, how it's really the gate of trust is a really good one for those of us, the nations. And I had read some of it in the past, so I picked this up, but I was looking at the introduction, first of this book. And so there's a statement in here that I wanted to read tonight because it kind of ties into what we have been studying over the past, couple years. And that is, what we call the Noahide laws, the laws of Noah. The 7, what Scotty and I call ethical and moral principles that God wants the world to live by. And this is a passage out of the book of Yeshayahu, 48, 17. So that's Isaiah, right? I read these all the time in Hebrew, and I have to think back what it is in English again sometimes. But this is a very interesting statement, is what we've been talking about over the last, months, much as we were, especially when we were studying the Divine Code. We did a brief study there of all the laws, which we'll return back to again. It says, I am Hashem, your God, who instructs you for your own benefit, who guides you in the way that you should go. And really, our commandments of those of the nations is exactly that. They are his instructions that are the benefit for us individually and for the nations, and how we should morally and ethically act with one another. And not only are the instructions for our benefit, they're also the way he guides us in the way. And I just thought that was really interesting when I was reading that this week, and how it kind of ties into what we've kind of been talking about, over the last few months. All right, Scotty, anything before I jump into the first? Got it? Okay. The third gate, the gate of serving God, chapter 1, the essence of the service of God's, page 63 in the book, Seven Gates of Righteous Knowledge. Did everybody hear me okay? I'm having fun with this microphone tonight. It starts out, Rabbi Weiner writes, he said, it's an obligation for a person to love and fear the glorious and awesome God with all of his might. The inspiration to feel love and to fear the fear of God is mostly effectively achieved by focusing one's knowledge upon him while putting his own mundane matters aside. When a person takes the time to contemplate God's wonders and great deeds that he continuously creating, that he is continuously creating and guiding everything that exists in the spiritual and the physical realms, and he appreciates that God's eternal wisdom is finite and surpasses all compassion, he will become inspired to love and praise and glorify him. I want to stop right there. And I had a personal experience with this several years ago, back when I lived up in another county just north of where we just moved from. Had 7 acres on a dead-end road out in the county, mostly all wooded. They were really good for walking around in. And one day I was just, had one of those meditative days. I got out, it was probably not quite summer, but spring had already kind of come. All the flowers and all that stuff was already been bloom. But I was out walking around at all the different trees and the brush. And I started I would stop and I would look at a maple leaf, just meditating. Now look at an oak leaf, a pine needle, leaf on a brush. I was just looking at all these different leaves and how they were designed and how the veins run different and how the shapes were different. And as I was just looking at these things, what came to my mind at that moment, like what he was saying here, when a person takes the time to contemplate God's wondrous and great deeds, it was like at that moment, I had one of those kind of moments that kind of overcome you, that it sinks in, that you kind of get a taste of the understanding or the knowledge of that the earth is full of God's glory. When you start looking at these things that were just all these different shapes and sizes and some colors, they wasn't all just green, and just examining all of these different leaves and different, foliages that was out in the woods. And it was just like, it overwhelmed me for a few moments about, this is how, one of the house of God's glory that fills the earth. And so it says the inspiration to feel love and fear of God. And it's like in those moments when we take time to walk away from the mundane hassle and the anxieties of everyday life on the job, or, a mother that's, at home with the children and doesn't have time for herself, that you can just take a few minutes to break away and walk out, walk outside, even if you have just a yard, just to walk around and examine the foliage of, what's in a yard, the different plants. Of course, if you live in Arizona, that's a lot of dirt and sand and rocks, but that's even beautiful too. Even that, I mean, we went out west, several years ago, and we were out in the desert. And one of the coolest things, I do not know how the cowboys slept on that desert floor, because if you stood there and you looked at the ground long enough and not move, the ground moved all around you. There was stuff crawling all in that. It was amazing. And I got to immediately thinking, oh, God, these guys climbed off their horse and they threw the blanket down. They went to sleep. Oh, I mean, what got in their ears and their eyes? I mean, just things you think about. I was a teenager, but still the beauty, no matter where you're at in the world, there's a place close to you where you can stop and see the glory of God in the creation. And this will inspire you to feel the love and the fear of God, where sometimes it's almost pretty much impossible to do that in the rat race of life, whether it be at work or at home with a house full of kids, or just situations in life that overcome us from time to time. We just got to stop. I've got a book that actually was one of these, what do you want to call them? It was a pop-up ad on my Facebook several years ago. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I'm going to go buy it. And I really recommend, actually, I've bought several copies and given them away now. It's called, I wish I hadn't thought about it. Oh, Gateway to the Soul. Gateway to the Soul. It's by Scott Tillman. It has nothing to do with spirituality as far as like religion. Him and his wife backpacks all over the country. They hike all over the country. They go through a lot of the national parks. And this was his first one. It's called Gateway to the Soul Wilderness something. It's when he goes and him and his wife backpacks, a lot of times he doesn't take a camera. He takes a notebook and a piece of paper, and he journals what he is seeing, what he's experiencing out there, in the wild. He's written 2 other books. I haven't got them yet, but they were just one of them pop-up books. I'm like, never have really bought something like that, but I really recommend it. He's on Facebook, Scott Tillman. If you like that kind of stuff, him and his wife here a while back sold their house, did everything, and just went out and started backpacking the whole southwest of the United States. And that's what they do. And he writes on that. And books like that can also inspire you, because you got somebody else that's experiencing things like, waking up and there's snow all around you in the mornings, and or a thunderstorm comes in and it rolls through the mountains. The way he describes the thunder in the mountains, the smell of the air in the deep alpine, forest and things like that. It's just good to get away and for inspiration. And these things will help you draw yourself into the love of God as you draw close to his creation. Rabbi Weiner goes on and says, this will bring him to yearn with tremendous desire to recognize God's existence and his attributes, as King David expressed. My soul thirsts for the Lord, for the living God. Now, I wanted to read that because the sages had written something here that I had never thought about.
Terry, when you get through reading that, can you come back to me just for a minute? I want you to read that first, but I got something I want
Okay. Yeah. This is going to be in Psalms 42, verse 3. My soul thirsts for God. And Roddick, one of the great Torah sages, says this: how many of us in our spirituality have used the terms, I'm hungry for God? Those of us from certain areas of religion, we've said that. We've cried that. Some of us has preached that. Scotty's sitting there shaking his head. But I want you to think about this. I mean, there's been times I'm hungry for God. But King David says, my soul thirsts. It doesn't say it hungers. Roddick says, Israel's craving is described as thirst rather than hunger, because water is more essential than food for the maintenance of life. A man can live without food for a few days, but he cannot survive without water. And the soul's thirst for God is even more intense than the body's craving for water. So it says the perception of God achieved through Torah study, as we do, is likened to drinking water. Matter of fact, that's one of the nicknames, or I guess you want to say, I guess nickname's a good word, of the Torah within the Jews, especially those who are Torah scholars and they study the Torah and they go deeper than what we'll ever do, because they're given more responsibility. They have more to deal with. But one of the nicknames that my first rabbi told me about, the Torah is considered as water. Because the verses where it says, if you're thirsty, come and drink, and that refers to learning from the Torah. But Torah study is likened unto water, and the prophet says like this, it says right here, Isaiah 55:1, everyone who thirsts, go to the water. But I just found that interesting that, King David says thirst here, and then the sages teach that Israel's craving is described as a thirst rather than a hunger, because water is more essential. And so the soul thirst for God is even more intense than the body's craving for water. Go ahead, Scotty.
Okay, I want to let me bring this back up here. So in this chapter 1 of this area where we're at right now, this phrase, the inspiration to feel, and I'm just going to stop right there, the inspiration to feel. I think all mankind has this deep inspiration to feel the love and the fear of God.
Right.
And some people don't know how to direct. They're brought up in different religions, and that is they're just seeking for connection, if I can say it that way. They're seeking because they have this inspiration to feel down inside them the love. And now that fear, is that a all or is that a fear?
That fear there is ground level, the beginning area of the fear of God is that fear and trepidation. We all should have that.
Is that like a reverence?
That one there is kind of what I heard. It says it's like you need to be able to, know that you can shake in your boots because he brought you in this world and he can take you out in this world before you even know it. That is, but our relationship with him does not remain at that level. We should always have that. We should forgo that, but it's not where we camp out.
Right.
Our that's one, like when the Rambam says that, when the nations observes the commandments of God for the sake that God has commanded us, has told us to do it, and we do that, that's moving up in that fear that we're doing something because he's told us to do it. And like what we learned from Jeremiah, he's told us to do it because it's for our benefit.
Right. Right.
Our observance of the commandments is for our benefit, not to restrict us and to restrain us from being something. It's actually a way of protecting us so that we can grow and become something very great, very successful.
Right.
But that fear starts out as like a fear and the trembling, which we should always have. We should never feel that. We should never be at a state where we don't fear God, that He could, at any moment shut our lights off.
Right.
But that's not where we stay.
Right. So what I wanted to bring out about this part is everybody, even everybody under the sound of my voice, everybody listening to the recording, we are raised, we have this inner desire, an inspiration. The word inspiration to me, and I'm just going to throw this out here, the word inspiration means to me that, like when somebody teaches a class, you, I, and Chrissy, others that are here, when they teach a class, it inspires other people to do something. So the inspiration, I think God puts this inspiration inside of us. The inspiration to feel love and fear of God is most effectively achieved. Here is the answer to the I hear a lot of people, and I know you do too, others of us hear as well. I want to feel God, but I don't know how. And so they're looking for all these ways to feel God through feasts and festivals. You know what I'm talking about. They're looking for all these ways. Right here's the answer. The most effectively achieve by focusing one's knowledge upon Him while putting his own mundane matters aside. I just wanted to bring that to me is inspirational.
Right.
So I just want to throw that out there. That's the evangelistic side of me.
The sages teaches us in many different ways. They teach Israel, and Israel teaches us that you will never draw closer to God, and His presence will never be as close to you as then when you do something in which you're commanded to do.
Yeah.
When you do, and our commandments, yes, don't steal, don't murder, and all these things here, they seem blah if you just look at the list. But when you meditate upon them and you start taking them into everyday life and what we call the details of everything that gives definition to those commandments, there's a lot of life. There's a lot of life in that. When you treat someone in the right and proper way, or you return something, you find something that was lost, and you're able to return it to its owner, and that expression that you see in that person's face and the gratitude that is in that person, at that moment, you're being drawn close to God, and He's being drawn close to you in those kind of moments. And that's just a small example. We can go all night with different examples within the 7 laws and their observances, and how you will actually feel the love of God and the fear of God within the observance of what He wants you to be as a human being. And then you have those moments where you can step outside the box, get out, go out and find you a private place somewhere and examine His creation just with your eyes, listen to the birds, let your nose take in the fragrances, the aromas, of a flower garden or just a flower. Watching a bee on a flower. Just stand there, watch. And you'll begin to sense the glory of God that's in His creation. Briar Weiner goes on and says, when he then continues his focus his focused contemplation on these matters, he will necessarily recoil in awe and fear through realizing how he is tiny and lowly in a spiritually dark spiritually dark creature, standing with his weak and limited human intellect in the presence of God Almighty. And that reminded me of that picture I posted the other day, because I follow several different astronomical things in the Webb telescope. I follow several pages on those because I love stuff about space and, you know, the beauty of galaxies and nebulas. It's just, but just, you know, this picture of this man standing there and he's looking out into space, knowing that there is multi-billions of stars, you know, and we're not even seeing a needle-sized piece of our own galaxy. You know, I've explained before, you know, using Star Trek real science, what's called warp speed, the speed of light, which we don't have a vehicle that can do that just yet. They are working on it, and I believe we will eventually break that barrier, just like we did the sound barrier. And traveling at 9 times the speed of light, which was the Enterprise D, 9 times the speed of light from the edge of our galaxy to the very edge of our galaxy to the very next galaxy at 9 times the speed of light, which is like 6-something billion miles a second. It takes 1,000 years if you could travel that fast to go from the edge of our Milky Way to the next galaxy. And I say that because if he says, here's his, when he then continues his focused contemplation on the matters, he will necessarily recoil in awe and fear through realizing how he is tiny, lowly, and in a spiritually dark creature, standing with his weak and limited human intellect in the presence of God. I say that is that look at who we are as humans and looking up at the stars and know there's a whole lot more out there, you know, than even us. You know, was it King David that says, who is man that, you know, as lowly as he is, you know, you think of man, and yet he's got all this other creation out there, and he loved us enough that he created us and give us his Torah to teach us how to live. And when we compare ourselves to nature and to the creation, we're a lowly creature standing in the presence of an almighty God, whose knowledge of everything is perfect. Well, yes, right here is where it was at. King David even declared, "When I behold your heavens and the work of your fingers, I wonder what is man that you should be mindful of him." A person's duty is to love and to fear the Creator in all intellectual obligations. So everything we go to do intellectually, when we're thinking about what we're doing intellectually, we have a duty to love and fear God. And part of that loving and fearing God is just doing what he asked us to do, doing our commandments, treating human beings and his creation in the way he wanted within those 7 laws. That's for all humanity. That is part of our love and fear of the Creator and our intellectual obligation, because everything he's given us to do is practical. It says, for when he contemplates that the Creator made the universe for the purpose of establishing the human race. Think of that. Like what I just said. There's billions of galaxies, and traveling over 6 billion miles a second, it takes 1,000 years to go from the edge of our galaxy to the next. And he's made this universe that's even more vast than that. But he made all of that for the purpose of establishing the human race. for reasons that came from his essence, and that the entire creation is nullified before him and has no separate existence apart from him, which we talked about when we were discussing the oneness of the Creator. He will recognize that he has been put into existence, and I'm talking about you and me, was put into existence to be a servant of God. And that servant of God doesn't mean like a slave like we have in our human mentality of what slave is and what a servant is. Therefore, a person's greatest advantage and achievement is in fulfilling this mission. However, since it is not in the nature of a person to love or fear something if he does not appreciate its character, it is therefore an obligation for every person to utilize his power of knowledge, to the best of your ability, what knowledge that you have, to contemplate in the awe and the greatness of the Creator and in the humility upon his own lowliness. This is the correct meditation that will bring one to a truthful recognition of God, and this awareness will necessarily arouse feelings that reflect this understanding. In this way, a person draws himself into the love and fear of God. As a reward for this service, God will respond and draw that person to him, and the person will indeed perceive that God's love and awesomeness is being revealed to him from above and from within his own mind and own heart. I want to read this footnote, but Scotty, before I get into that, is there anything you want to talk about before we get into this footnote? Okay. There's a footnote at the bottom here. It says, in the terminology of Hasidic teaching, it is explained that a person's rousing himself from his level below to come closer to God can bring about a much loftier reciprocation from God to rouse the person from above, to give him a greater and higher level of spiritual inspiration for divine service than he could have had achieved on his own. If the person receives this extra inspiration from God and promptly works on himself to internalize it, he can achieve a permanent advance in his spiritual standing. But it is easy for a person to let the gifted inspiration pass with only a temporary effect, leaving him back again at his original level. We've all experienced that, where we have that moment and that moment's gone. And what the sages is saying here is there's ways of cleaving onto that to where it's just not a fleeting moment, that it can become a reality. It is also possible that God in his mercy and kindness may send a rousing from above to a person who is stuck in a rut or a habitual sin or a bad habit, to fill his heart with a burst of love for God that will give him the strength at that moment to pull himself higher and break out of his lowly ways so that he can become more righteous. For either way that arousing above comes to a person, it is temporary revelation of God's kind attention. This is not to be confused with the cumulative heavenly and worldly rewards that are justly given to a person as a payment for observing his commandments and doing good deeds over the course of his life. All right, go ahead, Scotty. What you grinning about?
It takes me a minute. It takes me a minute to get all these buttons pushed to come back to you.
I know.
So I saw this word again a couple of times. Our whole goal is motivated by our inspiration. We can grow that inspiration or we can nullify that inspiration, depending on what we do with it.
Right.
I see a lot of people, different religions. I myself never, I'm just going to be honest with you. I myself never felt this because I was constantly seeking knowledge, and that knowledge gave me inspiration to want to know more. I think I've mentioned many times. If I haven't, I'm going to mention it again because that's just what I do. I did not, in school, I was terrible. If I knew then what I know now, I would have worked hard at school. I hated school. I'm just going to be honest with you. I hated school. I did not do any spelling tests. I did not carry my books. I put my books in the locker. The school I went to, the principal knew who I was. He kept my combination in my locker in his desk. And at the end of the year, I had to go find out what was my locker number and what was my combination. He said, "Here, Scotty, I've got it written down for you." So, I mean, the teachers knew me. I did, however, carry my Bible every day. That was my passion. And, and so I guess the teachers just kindly passed me on. And of course, I didn't graduate. I got married, had 1 year left of school, got married. But I guess I'm saying all that is suddenly, and this didn't happen but here recently, I loved reading the text. Suddenly I began to see things in the text. Some things were correct and some things were incorrect in the text that I carried. And so I started studying more. And I remember it wasn't too long ago, 10 years ago, I got my first library card. My dad said, I put it on Facebook. I posted on Facebook, and my dad said, I have died. I have gone. There's something up. You got a library card? And I remember when I checked out my first book, it was actually the Hamish. I didn't have none of these books yet. I was searching for answers for what I was looking for. This inspiration that had always been there, but I just didn't realize which way to direct it. And then suddenly when I began to see these things, I cannot tell you it was my mind telling me this. It was the inspiration that the Creator put inside me, part of my genetic makeup. And then I was so hungry, I couldn't stop talking about it. There was people that I was around every day, and that's all. I was talking about. That's all I was talking about. And I actually had somebody said, "Is that all you talk about?" Well, I can't help it.
Right.
But if looking back now, I'm going to say it like this: I always had inspiration. But we use that term as for such a time as this. I think have always been directed to where I'm going now. And I think, Hashem, I thank the Creator for inspiring me to want to know the love and the fear of the Creator.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to hush.
I was sharing with Andrew this last week. We sat and had a long talk, several hours long talk. We've been doing that here lately. And we were talking about, and I was telling him, we were kind of talking a little bit about prayer a little bit. And I told him, I said, well, I feel like my prayer is a little different. I said, study for me. And I didn't grow up in it like you. I didn't grow up in an educational based, home. My parents grew up on farms. They got, part of getting married was get away from the farm, in the 60s. And my dad was just always more or less self-employed, doing construction, electrical work, maintenance, like what you do, all kinds of different things like that. And so he raised me how to work until I didn't really have any interest in study in school the same way. I just got by, Matter of fact, I think in fourth grade, I got passed because the teacher just wanted me out of her hair. But but I didn't have any of that either, And my brother's got one of these photographic memories. He never carried a book. He never took a note and made straight A's. Everything that was written down on the board, he remembered it. Me, I could take the social study book home and I could study all night long and fail the test. I hated that I hated my brother, but it wasn't until later in life, and I had a teacher, an English teacher, that it inspired me in some things that got me interested in. We were studying in literature, and she was teaching us was reading some Robert Frost. She was teaching us how to discover what the author was writing. At the time, that really intrigued me, but it's just like the light didn't go off. There was a flicker, but it didn't go off until later in life, until actually I met my first Jewish friend that started teaching me studying Torah. And then things started going off. Well, years before that, I had one of those inspirations. I started reading multiple times a day, 7 days a week for several years, Genesis chapter 4, 6, and 7. I don't know why. Just something just nudged me. I couldn't put it down. My wife, even like you, my wife said I'd turn every subject we ever talked about to anybody back to Genesis 4, 6, and 7, the conversation that God had with Cain. I knew there was something there. But at the time, I didn't know Hebrew. I didn't even have my first book that had any Hebrew in it. And years went by. I started learning a little bit of Hebrew, and I started gaining more knowledge. But it wasn't until several years ago when I purchased the first Hummus, where he breaks words down. And I started with, that's kind of how I love to study. And I was telling Andrew, I said, study is kind of a form of a prayer for me. So he's asking me how that was. And I was telling him, I'm like, example, Genesis 4, verse 7. I said, there's a Hebrew word in that passage. It's sa'at. It's weird how one word can change your life. When Rabbi Hirsch broke that down and took that word to other places within the Hebrew scriptures and showed and brought it to its full meaning and put it in context of what God was saying to Cain, that one word changed my life. But it all started with an inspiration for that passage, I'm going to say 10 years earlier. And so, yeah, inspiration is so. I was sharing with Aaron, I was saying, so when I got this knowledge of this one word, well, I broke out in prayer. I started talking to God. Oh, I mean, just he and I was having one heck of a conversation. And that's like the inspiration, that love and the fear. And for me, what I've developed in my life is through the study of his word. Just one word. And it doesn't seem much, because if you look at its basic understanding, the word sa'at means rank. That's all it means. But it's how it's used in the conversation with Cain, and how it has a universal meaning for all of us. And yeah, that inspiration that brings us to, whatever your inspiration is. Maybe you like gardening and things like that. Maybe you like working on a vehicle and tearing into the internal combustion engine and internal combustion engine, and you know how it works. And like, even when I did heating and air, and I would wire up that unit, I'd charge the gas lines up on that condensing unit, and I would hit that disconnect, and you'd hear that compressor come on and it would purr. Things like that you can get inspiration from. It's weird, but anywhere in your life, you can find the inspiration that can lead you to the love and fear of God.
My one word inspiration when I was going through my hungry was a word that I heard in my 20s, but it never left me. And when I started seeking, the word was eisegetical. I know that's a big eisegetical.
That's one of your $50 words that you like.
That's one of my 50, and it means reading into the text what you wanted to say. And that word stuck to me. And then suddenly, when I started slowing down and doing some teaching in some of the places we were traveling to, asked me to do some classes, and I started doing those classes, that word kept coming up: hermeneutics and eisegetical and exegetical. And that's what slapped me in the face. It's like it woke me up and said, it's right there all the time. Anyway, my word was eisegetical. Right. Go ahead, Terry.
No, but this inspiration of the fear and love of God will draw us into the service of God, which we're going to pick up, Shem willing, next week, where it says this service to God is not an effortless task. We're going to get more into that next week.
Okay. Well, thank you, Terry. That's I'll definitely, as soon as we get out of this meeting, I'm going to reread that because I love breaking those things down. I love removing my eisegetical view and trying to get the inspiration to see the exegetical relation. Okay, that's all.
And if y'all got any questions out there, send them to Scotty. He likes the questions.
Yeah, I love the questions.
And yeah, we're looking forward to here in a couple months or so. We'll get back into a couple week Q&A like we just did. That was fun, guys. We really enjoyed that, just that conversation.
Yeah. All right. Well, Terry, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Chrissy from Australia, and Christopher from, let's see, don't tell me is I'm going to guess Carolina, but I'm wrong.
No, Syracuse, New York.
New York. Oh, you're up there next to Wendell. You're Syracuse. Where are you at, Wendell?
I'm in Schenectady.
So how far are you two apart?
About an hour and a half.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if it snows.
Oh, if it snows, he gets it. We're not getting it this year.
Okay. Good deal. Good. I was just going to ask, how's Mary doing?
Mary, Mary's laid down the shovel. The snow rake. Now she's going to pick up the pitchfork and she's going to slap you with
coming down here to Tennessee. Listen, if I got to get y'all down here to Tennessee like that, I would welcome y'all coming to Tennessee. So, all right. And, of course, Ronald, you are in Australia as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Veronica is in Texas.
She's our Roman goy.
She's a Roman goy. And
Wandering. There we go.
That's pronounced. And then, of course, we got Will right just a little bit from us down in Lenoir or Loudoun. Are you in Lenoir City or Loudoun? I think Lenoir City is in Loudoun County, isn't it, Will?
It is, but I'm in either one. I'm in Loudoun County.
Loudoun County. Okay. Okay. He's just a little bit from us. And then we got Bob up in Chicago. That's where I was born. And Bob, I think you're just a little bit from where I was born up there. I don't tell everybody I was born up there, but I will tell you, Bob, I was born in Chicago. I was shipped to Tennessee, but I was born in Chicago. And then we got Fred. Where you at, Fred?
Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky. He's not far from here. And then we got Thomas.
I'm far from there.
Yeah, you're far. He's far from here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the west side.
He's on the other side of Kentucky, like Memphis is on the other side of Tennessee.
Across the bridge is Illinois.
Yeah, he's up there near. Well, you're not too far from St. Louis, are you?
Northwestern Kentucky. If I cross the bridge, I get into Illinois in about 10 minutes. But St. Louis is about 2 hours.
As you can tell, I failed geography. Geography.
We're helping you out.
And then, of course, Thomas is just 15 minutes from me. And then
he's from Michigan.
He's right? From Michigan. He's from Michigan. We went.
I'm a northern redneck.
And I can vouch for that. And then we got my lovely wife. She's in the living room. She's just a few minutes from me. So I got to watch what I say because she can be in here in a few minutes. So, and she's over there. So, okay. It's good to have everybody with us tonight. Thank you all that stayed with us here on Power Faith Radio. And we hope that you got something out of this meeting tonight. Come back next Wednesday night. And we appreciate all of our listeners listening to Power Faith Radio. And then also we're sponsored by the YouTube channel Outreach Noah. And you can go find us. Just type in Outreach No on YouTube while you're there. Subscribe to that channel. Hit that notification bell that you'll be notified every time we go live or we put up a video. And we greatly appreciate it. Share that video with all your social media platform. And then this video, when Terry gets through with it, it will be shared over on A Simple Walk. And we greatly appreciate it.
And that's a public group. If anyone wants to come on over there and join that as well, because we post links and times for the Wednesday night class, and plus, other things. We hope to get the group up and going where we can even have some discussions in the group as well.
Yeah. Now, Veronica's group,
Simply Noahide.
Simply Noahide, and Chrissy's group,
Noahides of Australia and New Zealand.
Yes, but now doesn't you have a teaching YouTube channel?
My Noahide family.
My Noahide family. Ronald, you're on it. He's on it.
And Chrissy, you've got some videos on there just for women too, don't you? Yeah. So y'all gals, go over and visit Chrissy's My Noahide family, and she's got some video classes and stuff on there just for women.
Yep.
Women of Wisdom.
Women of Wisdom.
Women of Wisdom. Women of Wisdom.
Wow.
What?
There you go.
Women of Wisdom. Wow.
Now, are you going through that book? Because that was the inspiration.
Look, it just depends. There's some things I pull out. I tend to shift from book to book, but yes, there is a book called Women of Wisdom, and I rely on that. But there's lots of wonderful things also written for Jewish women, which aren't not necessarily is all of it applicable to us, but there's some lovely things when it comes to prayer and contemplation and things like that. And I think we can take advantage of that and look at it from a Gentile or Noahide point of view. So I spend a lot of time nitpicking through stuff to sort of get what I want,
There you go.
Yeah.
I like, because she, just like she does go through saying it, she's fashioning it, bringing it out, the part that is for the non-Jew. And I think that's great. I think that's great.
When we were going down and visiting there in Atlanta, we made some good Jewish friends down to the Atlanta synagogue, and matter of fact, my wife and I was talking with this lady, and then also another lady from Israel, talking about, because this was years ago, before we didn't have this stuff back years ago. All we had was the stuff that the Jewish people wrote for each other. I mean, that's, we are coming to them to learn. And so predominantly most of the things that they have got that's been written over the past several thousand years has been for them. And like our lady friend, my wife and I have, it's from Israel. She said, you just got to go in and pick out the bones and keep the meat that fits for you. But she said, soon there will be, because see, the Jewish people have been persecuted for the last over 2,000 years. And every time they, reached out to teach us these things that we are learning today, they get their heads cut off, or they would get, pushed out of one country to the next. Well, the time has changed because certain things is happening that's meant to happen for the nations to turn, because creators told us several places the nations will begin turning to come to Israel to learn of him. And so now there are some of them that are kind of, connecting with that service of God from their viewpoint to help us out.
Yeah.
And so now we're getting materials where they've gone through and pulled this information out and putting it in books for us. And, and they're at all as much as we are. It's been a mind blower for them that how the nations are beginning to open up and welcoming them in and saying, please teach us about God, just like Zechariah 8:23 says. And so now they're able to produce books like the Divine Code, the Seven Gates, and some other materials that we have. And they're teaching us how to read their material to know where the line is drawn between, what God's given Israel and God's given the nations, and what we both, like it's one Rabbi Bloomsdale puts, says we both drink from the same well, and we both share in the core beliefs and faiths, but there's two distinct identities. And we're witnessing something that's never happened on this planet before. That's been going on now. Really, it started picking, I guess, it kind of what we call back in the 80s with Vendell Jones, who was a Baptist pastor who started seeing some of this stuff way back then. And it's picked up now. It's worldwide. It's almost practically in every nation, and it's amazing. And now the Jews are not feeling threatened, and they're helping us out and welcoming us in. And it's beauty. It's really beautiful when you get to know some of these guys who are born and raised in the Hebrew language and the Hebrew tradition since Moses, and they're like opening up the Torah for the nations, and it's almost, you can't put words on it.
Yep.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Nope, that's good. So I'm going to bring it to a close, and hopefully, Hashem willing, we'll see everybody next week.
Amen.